Go ahead. Make my day. So do you want to be an outlaw or a sharpshooter? Do you want to be a pistolero? Do you want explosive options? Well, maybe you want to be a gunslinger. You've come to the right place. You've come to the Rules Lawyer with another one of my class shopping guides. I am a lawyer who runs and teaches tabletop role-playing games with kids and teens. I have just reached 1,000 subscribers. Please join us, like and subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications of my next videos. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the new classes that's being released by Paizo for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, the Gunslinger. The other class being the Inventor. Both are being released in Guns and Gears. As with my other class shopping guides, I'm going to quickly describe the Gunslinger, talk about why you want to be a gunslinger, why you might not want to be a gunslinger, talk about the core features of the class, and do a demonstration combat. So, the Gunslinger in Pathfinder 2e is the one that can wield firearms and crossbows very well. There are no real analogs for gunslingers in D&D 5th edition. There are homebrew classes and subclasses that can be found, and firearms do exist in 5e, but only as a variant rule, and they have their own proficiency category. Now, why would you want to be a gunslinger? Obviously, to wield guns or wield crossbows. In Pathfinder 2e, they are not their own category. They are treated like other weapons that are simple, martial, or advanced. So if you're proficient in one of those categories, you can be proficient with the firearm. It's just that, overall, they are an uncommon weapon in Golarion or in your Pathfinder 2e world, and you need to talk to your GM to see if you have access to them. You would want to be a gunslinger to get past firearms' reload problem. They require an action to reload their ammunition normally, and also to get those devastating critical hits that they can do. Firearms in Pathfinder 2e tend to do a little bit less damage on normal hits, but they have devastating critical hits. You also want to be a gunslinger if you see your character acting first in battle, always being ready to fight, being fast acting, and doing dramatic things with your weapon. Why not be a gunslinger? First of all, obviously, if your GM does not allow firearms or gunslingers in their campaign setting, you can't. Also, you don't need to be a gunslinger to be proficient with firearms or crossbows. Gunslingers are specialists. They are very good with firearms and crossbows, but not with other weapons. You can get the same degree of accuracy and rate of getting critical hits as gunslingers by choosing a fighter, and fighters also get other advantages and feats that support other styles of fighting. Also, as always, you can always take another class and take the multi-class Archetype Gunslinger and graft it on to your class. And there are other archetypes in the Guns and Gears book that support gun themes. And there's also an archetype called Bullet Dancer, which lets a monk do flurry of blows with guns. So maybe Gunslinger is a part of your idea, and wielding guns is a part of your idea, and you want to archetype into it. Now, the core features of the Gunslinger. First of all, what's noticeable is that they are expert with firearms and crossbows at level 1. They join this elite exclusive group that only includes fighters of classes that are expert in their attacks at level 1. And they also proceed to becoming legendary with this group of weapons at 13th level, just like fighters. And that leads us straight into firearm mechanics. That's very important because firearms, many of them have the fatal trait. And that means that on critical hits, they not only double their damage, they increase the size of the die, of the weapon damage die, before doubling, and they get an additional die of damage. And because in Pathfinder 2e, to trigger a critical hit, you can do so by getting an attack roll that's 10 higher than your target's armor class. You can get those critical hits much more often by having this higher accuracy. So they get an effective +2 bonus to their attacks compared to other martial characters. So that's very vital. Also, they have 8 hit points, which is a little less than other martial classes. They also are expert in perception and become legendary in perception, so that reflects how they are acting earlier in battle. Perception is the key stat to rolling initiative. It's the most used. To understanding the gunslinger's abilities, it's vital to understand more about how firearms work. Nearly all the firearms require 1 action to reload, and in Pathfinder 2e, you have 3 actions on your turn. And this sounds like a huge penalty. It is a penalty, but it's not as huge as it sounds, because in Pathfinder 2e, when you attack more than once on your turn, every subsequent strike is much less accurate than your first strike. On the other hand, it is attacks on your actions. You only have 3 actions. But what gunslingers have is a slinger's reload, which lets them reload their firearm or crossbow, plus do something in addition, which is determined by their subclass. And we'll go over the subclasses in a moment. Many of the firearms also have the concussive trait, which allows them to be treated as both bludgeoning and piercing for the purpose of dealing with enemy resistances. Firearms that do not have the fatal trait usually have the scatter trait, which means that in addition to damaging the primary target, they do a small amount of splash damage in a radius around the target. Firearms also require 1 hour of maintenance if you fired it yesterday or earlier, in order to avoid a possible misfire whenever you use it. It's a 20% chance that the gun will jam. So that's a bit of an inconvenience if you need to spend an hour doing something else in the morning, such as preparing your spells. The Gunslinger subclass that you choose at level 1 is its Way, and I'm about to go over each of them. And in addition to giving you a unique Slinger's reload action, you also get an initial deed, which lets you ready your weapon right at the start of combat, in fact when you roll initiative, and do something else at the start of combat. At level 1, you choose your Way, and there doesn't seem to be a way to get abilities of another one once you commit to one, so that's important to note. The first one is the Way of the Drifter. This is the gunslinger that has a firearm in one weapon, or crossbow, and a melee weapon in the other. So do this if you want to be able to go back and forth between those two kinds of attacks. And you also want to be able to get into the fight and move around and dance around the battlefield. Their initial deed means that when they roll initiative, they get to draw both of these weapons, a one-handed firearm or crossbow and a melee weapon. And as their first action on their first turn, they get to stride, walk towards an enemy that they can perceive. Their special reload action is called Reloading Strike, where they make a melee strike with their melee weapon and can reload their firearm at the same time. At 9th level, they get the advanced deed called Finish the Job, which means that if their last action was a shot that missed, they can do a melee attack, but at the same high accuracy level that the previous attack had. At 15th level, they have Drifter's Wake, which lets them spend 3 actions to move up to their speed and make 3 attacks along the way with either of their weapons, and they don't trigger attacks of opportunity or other reactions. The next way is the Way of the Pistolero. Now, this is the one you want to choose if you see yourself using your personality in combat and distracting your foes. So their first initial deed is called 10 Paces. So when they roll initiative, they immediately get to draw a one-handed firearm or a crossbow, and on their first turn, as their first action, they can step, move 10 feet or 2 squares without triggering reactions. Their special reload ability is called Raconteur's Reload, which lets them reload their weapon and say something distracting or frightening to an enemy as they do so, all for the cost of 1 action. Their advanced deed, which they get at 9th level, is called Pistolero's Retort. If an enemy within their weapon's first range increment critically fails in trying to attack you, you get to immediately shoot your weapon at them. Their 15th level greater feat is called Grim Swagger, where they spend 2 actions saying something that frightens all enemies within 30 feet around them, and they use Deception or Intimidate to do this. Next is the Way of the Sniper, and do this if you want to be far away from the battle and taking cover and shooting from there. The initial deed is called One Shot, One Kill. When you roll initiative, you draw your weapon, and on your first turn, your first strike does additional damage. Your special reload is called Covered Reload, where you can increase your cover bonus to your armor class and reload your weapon at the same time, or immediately after, or you can hide from view and reload your weapon. Their 9th level advanced deed is called Vital Shot, and this takes 2 actions against an enemy who is flat-footed to you, such as if you're hidden to them, and you get to do an additional die of weapon damage and do significant bleed damage to them. Your 15th level greater deed is called Ghost Shot, where you can get your 1 shot, 1 kill bonus damage every round possibly if you are at least hidden to what you're firing at. Also, if you are unnoticed or undetected, meaning they don't even know what square you're in when you fire, you only become hidden, which means they know what square you're in but still can't see you, so you remain cloaked. The next way is the Way of the Vanguard, and this is the one who can tank and bully people around at the front of the battlefield. And most of its abilities require a 2-handed firearm, or crossbow. Their initial deed is called Living Fortification, where when they roll initiative, they draw their weapon, and they immediately get to use the bulk of the weapon to defend themselves, like with the shield. And there's a level 2 feat that gives this bonus, makes it +2, which is very strong in 2E, comparable to a shield. Their initial deed is called Clear a Path, where if they're wielding a 2-handed crossbow or firearm, they can shove an enemy away from them with that weapon and reload their weapon, all not requiring a free hand. They can have both hands on their weapon while doing these. At 9th level, they get an advanced deed called Spinning Crush. It takes 3 actions, where basically they do bludgeoning damage to every enemy that's adjacent to them, around them, and try to push them away from the Gunslinger. At 15th level, the greater deed is called Siege Breaker, where they leap or walk into a spot, use their weapon to hit something next to them, do a lot of damage, and it ignores 10 points of hardness, and that can be a creature or a feature of the environment. And they stay in place, use it as a shield, increases their armor class, and they're very hard to move out of that square. Now, the last way is different from the others in that it's a class archetype, which means that you choose it at level 1 and then you must spend your 2nd level class feat on it, and it's called the Spellshot. The Spellshot at level 1 gets to add 1 damage, either acid, cold, or electricity, or fire, to their first 3 strikes of that combat. And the way weaknesses work in Pathfinder 2E, that's quite powerful, because even if you do just 1 point of damage, if it targets a weakness, they get that additional damage, whether it's 5, 10, or 15. And they get to choose what type of energy damage every time they make that shot. Their special reload ability is called Thoughtful Reload, where they get to recall knowledge, such as about an enemy's weakness, as they reload their weapon, all for the cost of 1 action. Their 2nd level ability is to be able to summon your bullet before you fire, which is admittedly not that strong. You want to craft your bullets or get a ready supply by talking to your GM and having enough for your adventuring anyway. The Spellshot also gets exclusive access to Spellshot feats that no other way can get, including notably a feat at level 6 that lets them spend an action to power up their shot so that they can add energy damage, a d6 of energy damage to their next shot, and that scales up as you level up. Their advanced deed lets them recall a bullet if they missed a shot, and their greater deed at 15th level lets them dispel an effect on their magical effect on their target. The Spellshot also blends well with the Beast Gunner archetype, which is the archetype where you bond with a gun that is part beast. And this archetype lets you cast some basic spells and spend 3 actions to both fire a shot and deliver a spell through your shot. As for the Gunslinger's class feats, there are 64 of them, and I probably shouldn't go over all of them, this being a shopping guide. This is more about letting you know what's there, so you can decide whether you want to be a gunslinger in the first place. But I'll make some comments about some notable ones. First of all, there's a first level feat that lets you craft ammunition. You should talk to your game master and find out if you need to be crafting your own ammunition in your campaign. Nearly all of the feats, the class feats, are available to you regardless of what way you pick, but some aren't. There's a feat that lets you wield a firearm or crossbow in each hand and still reload them without needing a free hand. There are feats that give you flashy moves, such as firing your gun to propel you an extra 10 feet when you jump. Also, hit the dirt, where you can, as a reaction, avoid an incoming shot. And when you get to higher level, you can add the ability to fire while you drop to the ground, which is really cool. You can also get a feat that lets you propel alchemical bombs using your gun. There's a level 4 feat called Paired Shots, where you get to use 2 weapons and combine the damage. If they both hit the same target, you can combine the damage before triggering resistances or weaknesses, and they're both at the same high accuracy. Also, there are class feats that let you skip the action economy cost of some actions, so letting you act faster within the theme of the gunslinger. There are particularly strong single shots that you can make with some feats that are particularly accurate or do extra damage. There are flashy ways to support your allies with your gun, such as helping an ally hit somebody when they're about to miss. You can fire your gun and assist them in hitting. There are feats that let you become particularly good with saving throws and get to re-roll, in theme with the idea of being very lucky or fast. And at level 10, there's the Called Shot feat, which lets you aim at a particular part of an enemy's body and give them a strong debuff. And then past level 10, there are some quite fantastical class feats that let you do amazing things, like hit somebody by ricocheting your bullet off of 2 surfaces or more, or when an enemy fires a bullet at you and you dodge it, you reload your gun with their bullet and fire back at them. So that just gives you a sense of what you can do with the gunslinger. Very dramatic, very showy. So in our demonstration combat, we have a gunslinger who has chosen the way of the Pistolero. She is the sheriff of this frontier town, and there is a shady figure who's challenged her authority. So they've called for a duel at high noon. They aren't taken 10 paces away from each other with their respective firearms out and roll initiative. So the Pistolero, having a +2 bonus to initiative that their initial deed gives them, naturally is first, and when she rolls initiative, she draws her second weapon, which is another pistol. Her initial deed also lets her, for free, step 10 feet at the beginning of her first turn. So she's going to step 10 feet toward the outlaw leader. This now makes the outlaw leader only 40 feet away from her and puts the outlaw leader within the first range increment of her pistol. She's going to use her first actual action that she's spending to fire at the outlaw leader using her flintlock pistol, and she is going to use that high accuracy that being a gunslinger gives her, +9. The enemy had an AC of 17. She rolls a total of 21, so that scores a hit. She's going to roll the damage on the pistol. She rolls 1d4 +1. As a gunslinger, she gets 1 bonus damage with firearms and crossbows. And as you can see, 1d4 is not a whole lot. She really wants to get those crits. So that's 5 damage against the outlaw leader. With her second action, she's going to use her Slinger's Reload ability, which is Raconteur's Reload, where she gets to reload that flintlock pistol, and also, right before she does so, she's going to try to do something distracting to the outlaw leader and do a deception check against the outlaw leader's perception. That's a 24. So the outlaw leader's perception was 15. So she succeeds and gains the hidden condition against the outlaw leader, making the outlaw leader flat-footed to this next attack. So she's going to fire again with her flintlock pistol. That is only a 7. So even though this outlaw leader's flat-footed and its AC lowers, it's not enough to hit its adjusted lowered AC of 15. So that ends her turn. She has one loaded air repeater and an empty flintlock pistol. Now next is not the outlaw leader. It turns out it is this outlaw, an ally of the outlaw leader, who has been hiding behind this doorway in this house to the side. It has secretly, the GM has rolled stealth for initiative, and it is ready to act now. So this outlaw is hidden to the Pistolero right now and is going to fire at her. And it has a flintlock pistol as well. But it being in the second range increment, it will suffer a -2 penalty to this roll. So the actual total's 22 versus her flat-footed AC of 16. This is going to be a regular hit. These are NPCs, these outlaws, and they have a special ability to do sneak attack damage, an extra 1d6 damage when shooting a flat-footed target. So this is going to be 4 for the pistol plus sneak attack damage. So she takes 8 damage to her health. The outlaw then uses its next action to reload their pistol, and their third action to take cover behind the wall. Walls normally give you cover, which is a +2 circumstance bonus to AC, and in the case of when you take cover behind such cover, it increases to greater cover, which is a +4 circumstance bonus to AC. The gunslinger came with friends. She came with other members of her party. A sniper, who is posted in this nearby building on the 2nd floor, and a gunslinger, Naumika, the iconic gunslinger, who has the Way of the Vanguard, and another gunslinger with the Way of the Drifter. They prepared themselves for this kind of untrustworthy behavior. The gunslingers all get to draw their weapons for free when they roll initiative. And also, the Vanguard, Naumika, gets to use her weapon to give her a +1 bonus to AC before her turn. The sniper is next in initiative, and she's been hiding, and she wants to fire her gun and then use her special reload action. That leaves her a third action to do something else with. Right now, she likes to recall knowledge about the outlaw leader. The 2E jealously guards the hidden condition. You lose it if you do something beside hiding, stepping, or sneaking. And so recalling knowledge is not in that small list. But if it's particularly unobtrusive, you can do a stealth check to succeed at doing it, and the GM gives her the green light to do so. So she's going to try to stay hidden while recalling knowledge. She succeeds. She beats the perception DC of the outlaw leader, and she's going to recall knowledge using her society skill. She finds out that the outlaw leader gets to treat frightened enemies as flat-footed to them, and so they might do that in combat. With her second action, she is still hidden, and so she's going to treat the outlaw leader as flat-footed. And because of her one-shot, one-kill ability, this first strike gets +1d6 precision damage if it lands. So she's going to fire with her arquebus. She critically misses. She does not succeed here. And the arquebus has the kickback trait, which gives it +1 damage, but also makes the firer have -2 on their attack roll, unless they have a tripod or have a strength of 14 or higher. She's had a tripod set up, so that is her arquebus. Her last action is going to be to do covered reload she is going to hide as part of her covered reload. Her 17 will succeed at making her hidden to the outlaw leader, and she gets to reload her gun as part of this action. Next, there is another outlaw that was in hiding in the same building, hiding behind the window. They were positioning themselves and had rolled stealth for initiative, so they're hidden to the Pistolero. They will fire. And this 15, well, this Pistolero is flat-footed, so their AC is lowered to 16. And additionally, there is a -2 penalty because of the range being greater than 40. So that's definitely a miss. And they're going to use their next action to reload and take cover behind the window, just like with our friend Outlaw number 1 over there. So these two gunslingers are actually right here according to my scenario plan. So I moved them there. Okay, the Drifter is next. So this is the one who, when they rolled initiative, drew out 2 weapons, the double-barreled pistol and a short sword. They're the ones who fight melee and ranged. So as their first, for free, on the first turn, they can stride towards a perceived enemy. So they will stride toward the leader, and then he will walk towards stride as his first actual action that he's spending an action on. So now he's going to fire his double-barreled pistol at the leader. And double-barreled means he can choose to shoot both barrels at once to increase the damage die of his shot, and also the damage die of the fatal property if that gets triggered. So he will fire. A 19 will hit. So instead of 1d4 damage, he is going to do 1d6 damage, plus his +1 damage from his Gunslinger ability. So normally it would be 1d4 + 1, here it's 1d6 + 1, and it does 6 damage to the outlaw leader. For his third action, he is going to do Reloading Strike, where he makes a strike with his melee weapon, and it's a short sword, which is agile, so it has a lower multiple attack penalty of 4. So it's also not a firearm, so he's going to be not as accurate with it. But here we go. He's going to roll and add 3 to it. That does not hit the outlaw leader, but as part of Reloading Strike, he gets to reload, so his gun gets reloaded as well. That's his special reload action. That's not all. There is yet another ally of the outlaws who's been on the 2nd floor, posted in this building with an arquebus on a tripod. This is a level 2 enemy who is a gunslinger who has taken the Spellshot archetype, has the Spellshot way, and he yells, "You're cheating!" He has been hiding, so he gets to treat the Drifter as flat-footed, and he fires with his arquebus. Now, he gets to draw his weapon for free while rolling initiative, and he also gets to add 1 point of acid, cold, electricity, or fire damage. He's going to add acid damage to this first strike. He gets to do this for his first 3 strikes in the combat. So he fires his arquebus and he hits. So he is going to do this damage, and he rolled maximum damage. He gets to add 1 for being a gunslinger, 1 for the kickback property, and 1 from his class archetype. So he does 11 damage to the Drifter. His second action is to use his special reload ability called Thoughtful Reload, which lets him recall knowledge and then reload. He is going to recall knowledge about the Drifter. With the 15, that's a level 1 success, and he succeeds at learning that the Drifter has the ability to combine sword and pistol, and yells that at the outlaw leader. So the Spellshot uses his last action to take cover, and he gets +4 AC due to greater cover. Next is the outlaw leader, who is going to try to get away from this Drifter, now having been warned. He's going to stride here, and then with his gun that's already out, he's going to shoot at the Pistolero on the way. The Pistolero has a level 1 gunslinger feat called Hit the Dirt. As a reaction, they get to drop to the ground when they are targeted by a ranged strike and get a +2 circumstance bonus to their armor class. Now, she didn't do this earlier because it would leave her prone and flat-footed to future attacks, and she was suspicious that there were more people hiding. So she's going to do it now, though, and the outlaw leader is going to try to fire. An 18 will miss by virtue of her having hit the dirt. So she is now prone after hitting the dirt. So the outlaw leader has one more action and is now going to go behind this wall and does not have an action to take cover, and so will just take standard cover. Next is the Vanguard, who, when she rolled initiative, had raised her weapon and gotten +1 bonus to AC. But now her turn starts and that AC bonus ends. She, being a Vanguard, wants to get into the thick of things and is going to spend 3 actions running towards that building where the enemies now seem to be planting themselves. So round 2 begins. The townsfolk are now fleeing the area. The Pistolero is prone on the ground. She wants to get closer to these enemies to remove their cover advantage. She's going to have to stand up, though, which costs 1 of her 3 actions, and then stride over. What she can do next is perhaps fire her offhand gun at these folks, but she wants to do what she can right now to remove their terrain advantage, so she's getting a little more closer and a little more threatening to them. The outlaw now wants to attack the Pistolero with his loaded gun, so he will fire. And that's a hit, and that does 2 damage to the Pistolero. With his next action, he's going to reload and try to fire one more time, but it is less accurate and that misses. Next is the sniper, who has the level 1 class feat cover fire, where she fires at an enemy and they have to choose between ducking and giving themselves -2 to their future attacks, or granting you a +1 circumstance bonus to your attack. Now, the sniper had used the hide action last turn, but their stealth roll was only 17, which is not enough to fool this level 2 gunslinger, who has a DC of 21. So she will not be hidden to the Spellshot. She uses the cover fire action. The Spellshot now gets to choose between ducking and getting a +4 circumstance bonus to the attack because they're behind cover, but then they would get a penalty to their future shots. The other choice is to not duck and grant a +1 bonus to the enemy. Because right now, the Spellshot already has greater cover, he chooses to give this attack bonus to the sniper, because he doesn't want to get this -2 attack penalty for his next turn. So he grants the +1 bonus to the sniper. A 14 will definitely miss. The sniper then uses his special reload ability to try to hide again and reload his weapon. Or reload her weapon, excuse me. 25, that will probably succeed, which is, by the way, a secret roll by the GM normally. Next is Outlaw 2, who sees that they are now rushing the party. So they will move up here and then try to use their fist to attack the Pistolero, and the Pistolero is flanked from this position. That is a hit, and it's going to do 10 damage because of the extra sneak attack damage against flat-footed enemies. This knocks out the Pistolero. So the Pistolero goes to dying 1 and also moves into initiative right behind what just happened. The outlaw will, with their loaded gun, now fire Nalmika in the face, or try to. A 21 will hit, and it will do 1 damage to Nalmika. They are not gunslingers, they are NPCs who don't get that bonus damage. Okay, next is the Drifter, who sees his ally in trouble. He's gonna join the rush towards the door to try to help his allies. He is going to move twice to right here. Upon reaching there, the Drifter will try to fire his loaded gun against the outlaw leader, who does not benefit from cover at this angle, and the clear the stairwell that the outlaw leader is standing in front of. So the drifter is going to fire and hit with a double-barreled pistol and do 5 damage to the outlaw leader. Next is the Spellshot, who sees the threat the Vanguard poses, and so will fire at Nalmika and add acid damage to this shot. That is a 24, and that will definitely hit and do 9 damage to Nalmika. Then the Spellshot will do a thoughtful reload and recall knowledge about Nalmika. Does not succeed, and then is going to not use greater cover. The Spellshot is not firing at the sniper because the sniper is now hidden to her because of her successful hide action. So the Spellshot will fire a second time using their last energy shot in this battle against Nalmika. That misses. The outlaw leader will now move up to the drifter and flank and make a attack with their hatchet, which they have just taken out because they can benefit from flanking with melee weapons. And this is going to be a hit and do 3 damage to the drifter, who is lucky to still be conscious. Alright, Nalmika is next. Now she's the Vanguard who has the reload ability that lets her shove before reloading for 1 action. She would like to do that to shove this person out of the way. This rectangle here represents the stairway that leads to the 2nd floor where the sniper is at. So she could do that after firing her weapon so that she could shove while reloading the weapon. But there's another problem in that she has a blunderbuss. When she fires her and shoots the outlaw leader with it, or anybody, it's going to splash in a 5-foot radius and do 1 damage to everyone around them. And she would rather not hurt her allies. So what she's going to do is she's just going to come up here and try to shove with her first without shooting her gun. And besides, by doing it first, it will not incur the multiple attack penalty. So she will use her athletics to shove. An 18 succeeds against the Fortitude DC, which is 16. And the target gets pushed back, and she moves with it, which she can do as part of her shove. For her last action, she thinks it's now okay to fire her blunderbuss in their face, because the splash will not hurt her ally who's currently dying. So she is now going to fire her blunderbuss using her 2nd attack bonus, and not hit. Now this outlaw is next. We're now in round 3, and it wants to get to this square right here, so it wants to tumble through the enemy, which is the drifter, so that it can get into flanking position. So it will try to use acrobatics and fail against the drifter's reflex DC of 19. Gunslingers are agile, so what it will do is instead try to just move here and try to attack Nalmika that way. So here comes a fist attack, and that will do damage. However, it will not get sneak attack damage. 2 damage. It is now the sniper's turn, who we will remember succeeded on her stealth check pretty much against everybody. So she gets to treat the Spellshot as flat-footed to her. The Spellshot still has cover though. She's going to use her cover fire feat to give the Spellshot the choice of taking a penalty to attacks or granting +1 to the sniper. Also, the sniper has a range increment of 150 feet on her arquebus, making this a great weapon for her. So she will fire. That will miss. She will spend a hero point at this time. She really wants to get this shot in. And she succeeds. And this is actually a 28. I will point out that the cover prevented this from being a crit, which is very deadly with firearms. This does 9 damage to the Spellshot. Next is the Pistolero, who is dying right now, who needs to do a flat check to stabilize, and she does so. She succeeds and gains the Wounded 1 condition. Outlaw number 2 will move forward and try to use this opportunity to flank Nalmika and therefore use her melee attacks. That's a miss, and that is yet another miss. So The Drifter is next and has a class feat called Sword and Pistol, which gives him benefits when he fights with melee and ranged. He can, when he makes a melee attack, if that hits, his ranged attack against that same enemy will not trigger reactions like Attack of Opportunity, reactions that trigger on a ranged attack, but not a melee attack. If he does a range attack and hits, his next melee attack against that same enemy is treated as the enemy becomes flat-footed to them. So he will do that second option and do a ranged attack against this outlaw. No, actually, against the outlaw leader. Actually, they're both very low hit points, so they are probably doomed. So 26 will hit, and this will do 5 damage and kill the outlaw leader. So his feat actually doesn't come into play. However, he does get to do melee, his reloading strike ability, and strike this outlaw here, and then reload. So with his short sword, he will do this strike. A 21 hits. He does 7 damage, and he gets to reload, as this is the benefit of being a drifter. With his third action, he will run up the stairs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, treating the stairs as difficult terrain. So the Spellshot is next and sees the danger and of someone running up the stairs. He wishes he had the quick draw feat right now to switch to a weapon that's better in close quarters, but his level 2 feat was committed to Spellshot, his Spellshot dedication. So that's a drawback of this class archetype. What he does is he spends an action to take out his pistol, his dueling pistol. He's also going to step here to get total cover from the sniper, and he's going to fire his loaded dueling pistol at the drifter. And that is a critical hit. So we now get to see a critical hit with a firearm in action. They have the fatal trait, the dueling pistol does. So let's just see, for our purposes, a regular hit, what that looks like on a dueling pistol. It is a 1d6 and nothing else. It has the fatal d10 trait, the pistol does. So what happens is the Spellshot will roll a d10. Well, actually, the Spellshot is a gunslinger, so should be getting +1 damage. Okay, imagine that's 5 damage. So the Spellshot will be rolling a d10 instead of a d4. Then the resulting damage will be doubled because it's a critical hit. And on top of that, the fatal trait means that they get to, in addition to increasing the die to d10, they get to roll another d10 and add that to the doubled total. So this will be a total damage of 14, and that actually was pretty modest, actually 16 because of the gunslinger bonus damage. So that will, because it's a critical hit, take the drifter to dying 2 and 0 hit points. So that was the Spellshot's last action. Nalmika is going to charge up the stairs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, get into the Spellshot's face and shoot. The Spellshot actually does not want to hit herself with, well, maybe she does want to get in his face to use his reloading ability next turn. But yeah, a scattershot weapon will spray some damage on herself. So here comes the blunderbuss. That's a 22. It will do 3 damage, not much at all, and do splash damage on both the Spellshot and herself. Now it's round 4, and Outlaw number 1 is going to run up these stairs and attack Nalmika, who is flat-footed due to flanking, and miss. Walking up took 2 actions because the stairs were difficult terrain going upstairs. The sniper is sees that the Spellshot got out of the way, and so she yells a secret code at Nalmika. So she's going to delay her turn, And the Pistolero and Drifter will roll their stabilize saves. Next is the Spellshot, who will use one action to reload that pistol in her hand and try to, and also take out a short sword and stab the Vanguard with it. And that's a miss. Very lucky. Now it's Nalmika, who heard the secret signal from the sniper and will now use Clear a Path, her special Vanguard ability that lets her shove and reload in one action. So she's going to shove the Spellshot towards the window and reload. Meanwhile, I actually lied. The sniper did not delay her turn. She had used her covered reload to hide, and she succeeded on her stealth check. So she's now she now gets to treat the Spellshot as flat-footed, and on her turn she used her last 2 actions to ready one action, and that readied action, of course, was to strike the Spellshot when it got in the window when her ally pushed the Spellshot back into the window. So she now fires. And that's a critical hit. So it's a 27. Oh, actually, it was not a critical hit because the Spellshot has cover. So their AC is actually 19 right now. But it is still very valuable. And the Arquebus will do 3 damage. Not much damage. Oh well, it was a good plan. But Nalmika is now going to use her second action to shoot with her now loaded gun. And the Spellshot does not have cover and is not flat-footed to Nalmika. So it is the second attack, however, so it's a +4, and that misses. Nalmika will use her hero point to re-roll this roll, and that's a hit. She's going to do 6 damage and do an additional splash damage to the enemy and herself. And I will say that the Spellshot, with 1 hit point and exposed to the sniper, is demoralized and is probably going to surrender. Besides, I think I've shown what I wanted to show in this demonstration. So that was the Gunslinger combat demonstration, and I just want to add a couple points. First, you can see from the demonstration that Gunslingers get extra actions for what they want to do, and that's really in theme with the Gunslinger. They're fast acting and get to do more things than other classes get to do. And also, you can see the real value of those critical hits, and you really want, when you have a Gunslinger in the group, to find ways to make the Gunslinger more likely to succeed on a critical hit. The way crits work in Pathfinder, a +1 very often doubles the frequency with which you can get a critical hit, or something close to doubling. And getting a +2 bonus, such as the sniper being able to hide behind cover and make the enemy flat-footed. If you needed a 19 or higher to crit, you now need a 17 or higher to crit. And so that's one example of a huge dramatic chance that you're going to critically hit somebody. So you want allies to give you those bonuses, and you want to find, even more than you normally do in Pathfinder 2e, ways to debuff the enemies. Do you want to be a gunslinger? And if you do, which of the ways seems most exciting to you? Talk about your character concept and what you'd want to add to them in the comments below. So subscribe and ring the bell. I'll be posting a video soon on the other new class, the Inventor, and also do other class shopping guides for the other classes that have already been published. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.